Coming up on KCCI 8 News Close-Up, we talk with former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson as he tests the waters for a presidential run in Iowa.
And Iowa GOP Chairman Jeff Kaufman on what state Democrats should do to keep their caucus first in the nation in 2024. Plus, the pressure Republicans face in holding and keeping their caucuses first.
This is Iowa's news leader. This is KCCI 8 News Close-Up.
And a good Sunday morning to you. Welcome to KCCI 8 News Close-Up. I'm Chief Investigative Reporter James Stratton.
And I'm Chief Political Reporter Amanda Rooker. Well, the number of Republicans running for president is starting to rise, and that means we could be seeing a crowded field in 2024. For months, the only official candidate was former President Donald Trump. But last week, Nikki Haley, who served as Trump's UN ambassador, announced she's also running for the GOP nomination.
But other Republicans may soon join the race. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, former Trump Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, and former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson have all made moves indicating a possible run.
And Hutchinson has already visited Iowa several times to gauge support for a possible run. He was back in Des Moines this week. I spoke with him about when he'll make a decision on a run for the White House and what he believes 2024 will look like. Well, Governor, we spoke last month when you came to Iowa. You told me then that you were considering a run for the White House. You were talking with Iowans. Are you planning to run for president?
Well, it's on the table, a decision we made a little bit down the road. But in the meantime, it's important to bring the consistent conservative message that I believe our country needs back to Iowa. Iowa leads the country in conservative outcomes that are solution-oriented, and I think that's what our country needs. So I enjoy the conversation here in Iowa, and it's good to be back.
When you're talking with Iowans, what are you telling them? What message are you hoping to bring to Iowans?
Well, you look at the challenges that our country faces, from border security to the fentanyl crisis. Well, you look at my experience in the Bush administration. I was head of the Drug Enforcement Administration. Of course, it brought me to Iowa quite a bit with the methamphetamine crisis we had at that point. I was at Homeland Security and all my responsibilities for border security. And so I want to address the challenges that we face, from the security issues that we have in Ukraine and concerns about Russia to China. But it's also about the solutions that we have. We need a leader that understands the ag community. I grew up on a farm. We have agriculture as our number one part of the economy in Arkansas. So I talk about those experiences that are important, but it's a consistent conservative message that's important to shift directions for our country, to be problem solvers rather than just creating chaos. And so that experience combined with a conservative philosophy, I think, is good for our country. And I want to hear from Iowans as to whether that's a kind of leadership that's important for our future.
When you talk to Iowans, is there anything that you're looking to hear from them that will help you make your decision on whether you're going to run or whether you're going to decide not to run?
Well, absolutely. And you look at Iowa right now, it is really in a critical place. I'm very proud of their first in the nation caucus. They're going to have the first voice. They're very knowledgeable about the issues. And so that's fun to be in Iowa for that reason. But they're critically important because it looks like we're going to have a number of candidates from South Carolina that will be in the mix. And so this is more of a neutral place that you can come and campaign and have a fair hearing on the ideas and the direction of our country. And so I want to see if that message of what I did as governor of Arkansas, or the experience that I've had at the national level, bringing spending under control, driving our economy forward, creating private sector jobs, supporting the ag economy here in Iowa, is something that matches with what Iowans want. And I see Governor Reynolds and the job that she's doing in providing a parental choice in education. Whenever you look at solving the problems of government and more efficient, these are things that we have in common that I think make sense for our future and need to be brought to our nation's capital.
As you're having those conversations, how close are you to making a decision?
Well, it's really a time frame. So I think it's fine to be the first part of the second quarter. Iowans are very sophisticated about this. They understand the timing. They understand why I'm here. And so I can bring a message. I can help understand the issues that are important here. So we're accomplishing much of what we need to do, and the timing of it is can be delayed to a little bit later. And so I think the final decision probably would be late March, early April is what I would be looking at.
As you mentioned, Iowans know what's going on. We waited for a while after Donald Trump announced that he's running. We now know that Nikki Haley is formally in the race. Do you feel like that sort of opens the floodgates for more candidates like yourself to make a decision as well?
Well, it does, and everybody's on their own time frame, but whether you're a formally announced candidate or whether you are carrying out the message here to Iowa, they're going to be here. And so I think there's a couple of important points that, one, people worry about where we're going to have so many candidates. It's going to be difficult to have a different voice than Donald Trump. It's going to divide the support. Well, I think, you know, we had 16 candidates in 2016. It's going to be different than that. I think it's going to be closer to 8 this time. We'll see. And so I think the number will be fewer. I think that they'll all be committed to doing a lot of self-evaluation as we go through, and I will have a big voice in that self-evaluation because there needs to be a course correction for the Republican Party, where we're not just about the past grievances or getting even or about one's own self. It is about how we can serve our country, how we can bring out the best of America, and how we can listen and solve problems. And so that's the new message, that's the new voice that I think is important for our party and our country. And people want Washington to work like we see the states working. I've been a governor for 8 years, and I'm held accountable for decisions and what we've done. And we expect those kind of solutions and problem solving in Washington, and it's just not getting done right now.
Still to come on Close Up, I continue my interview with Asa Hutchinson. Hear how he thinks he could stand out in a potentially crowded Republican field dominated by Donald Trump.
And later, the Iowa caucuses are still the first in the nation on the Republican side. What the state GOP chair says Iowa Democrats should do to keep their caucus number one, and how he's offered to help. Well, welcome back to Close Up. Former President Donald Trump, the first to enter the Republican race for president in 2024.
As former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson considers a run of his own, I asked him if and how he could convince Trump supporters to back him instead. You mentioned you see this upcoming election being different than 2016. And you mentioned in 2016 there are a lot of people that saw a crowded field really dividing up support, leaving Donald Trump with a pathway to the nomination. You know, even if it's 8 versus 16, How do you feel that 2024 will be different from that? How would you be able to stand out from a crowded field and not just divide support from Donald Trump?
Well, Donald Trump is a known factor. In 2016, he was a new phenomena on the political horizon. And so everybody's used to his tactics. Everybody understands the chaos that goes with him. And so I think there'll be a different evaluation of that. And I think there will be a closer scrutiny of the other candidates, and they will have a fair shot at making their case. And that's the environment that you want. And so I think it's totally different than 2016 for those reasons. And I think the pressure point will be probably to try to figure out exactly who's the best options before you get too far down the line. Now, you got to balance that with it's all not going to be decided in Iowa. It's going to be narrowed in Iowa. But you look at New Hampshire, you look at South Carolina, it's going to be a little bit of an endurance contest as to who can really showcase their skills, who can present the right message, and get broad support for a new direction for America.
One other question for you. I know it's still a little bit early when we're talking about polling. The latest Des Moines Register Mediacom Iowa poll on Donald Trump's favorability, it comes from October, but that is the latest poll. It showed that 83% of Republicans in Iowa polled viewed Donald Trump favorably. How would you plan to court or talk to those voters that do still see Donald Trump as a favorable candidate?
Well, it's very similar. Arkansas, Donald Trump's name ID, but also favorability is high in Arkansas as well. And I think it's important to recognize a lot of the good things that were done in his administration, from improved relations and better support for Israel to moving away from such high regulation, producing more energy. So a lot of good things that were done, people recognize. But at the same time, they look at the future and how do we win? We've lost elections repeatedly under his leadership, and so how do you move into the winning column? How do you attract suburban voters and independents in the fall election? So that's a test. And so while there's favorability for a lot of what Donald Trump did, we recognize that, there's also an understanding that we need to have new leadership. We need to have a new thought where we're problem solving and not just looking to the past. And I think that's a differentiator for the public and the voters, and we will see whether that's true, but that's how I see it.
Quickly, you were here in January, you're back in Iowa in February. Do we plan to see you in Iowa in March or April?
You will. Excited about coming back. Today I'm here in Des Moines, but I'll be going over to Council Bluffs, and then I'll be back to Ankeny, and I'm sure there'll be more that's scheduled, which there's so many topics to cover when you're here, from the fentanyl crisis that impacts us, to border security that really impacts Iowa as well, to the uptick in inflation that we've just seen. All of this centers upon national policy that's got to be changed. I want to make sure my voice experience is looking for the right solutions for those things. So I will be back in Iowa.
Well, Hutchinson is just the latest potential candidate to visit Iowa in the last week.
Nikki Haley will be in central Iowa tomorrow. During last week's announcement for her run for president officially in her home state of South Carolina, Haley explained why she believes Republicans will support her campaign.
We're ready to move past the stale ideas and faded names of the past. And we are more than ready for a new generation to lead us into the future.
During her official announcement last week, Haley called for mandatory mental competency tests for politicians older than 75. President Biden, for instance, 80 years old. Former President Donald Trump, 76. And Trump's former Vice President Mike Pence also in our state last week. He spoke at a rally at a Cedar Rapids Pizza Ranch with his group Advancing American Freedom, saying hello Iowa there. After the rally, he was asked about Haley's candidacy and about his own plans to run for the White House.
I wish her well. Ambassador Nikki Haley did a great job in our administration, and she may have more company soon. in the race for president. And I promise folks here in Iowa and all of you, I'll keep you posted.
Now, another potential Republican candidate will be in Iowa later this week. South Carolina Senator Tim Scott plans to attend Polk County's Lincoln Dinner Wednesday, and he's currently on what he calls his Faith in America listening tour.
Still to come on Close Up, the head of the Iowa Republican Party with advice on how Iowa Democrats can keep their caucus first in the nation and how he's offered to help.
Well, welcome back to Close Up. It has been nearly 2 weeks since the National Democratic Party stripped Iowa of its long-held first-in-the-nation status for the 2024 election.
I talked with Iowa GOP Chair Jeff Kaufman about what his party is doing to help keep Democrats first. The Democrats obviously lost their caucus first-in-the-nation status roughly 2 weeks ago. You've been vocal on wanting them to keep the first-in-the-nation status. Other than being vocal, what have you done or what can you do, I guess, tangibly to help them keep that first-in-the-nation role?
Absolutely. And I one thing I can do is just offer that if they are able to still hold them, and there is that option, I can tell you undeniably that if the RNC was doing this to me, I would tell the RNC it's tough. We're having our caucuses. You can keep your slots at the National Convention. That's a 3-day political commercial. Life goes on in Iowa if we don't have Iowa delegates there. And so if they decide to do that, and I am 100% behind them, there are many things we can do. We can talk about sharing apps that we choose, not apps that the National Democratic Party chooses that set them up in the first place. We can talk about all kinds of joint activities that we do together, and we can help each other. In 2020 and 2016, the Republican and Democratic parties both not only shared an app, but got sponsors for that app, and we were also able at that time to bring in people from Harvard to make sure that we had credibility and transparency and security. So I stand ready to help and stand. It's with them. It's the bipartisan part of my job, and I'm all in favor of it.
App, obviously referring to the 2020 app debacle in the
Absolutely.
Democratic Party. You've already nailed down the first-in-the-nation status.
Yes.
Do you feel pressure to run that smoothly to then keep that first-in-the-nation status here in Iowa? Iowa?
Oh,
for the
absolutely.
Republicans?
And you know, the thing that's lost on this is, I mean, we had a plan to make this happen. This didn't just happen that the Republicans were first in the nation. This is a plan after over 2 years. I brought in all the major national figures, put them all on camera, on the spot, asking if you think Iowa should be first in the nation, made sure that the 168 RNC members were with us, the carve-out states of South Carolina and Nevada and New Hampshire, we were all together. And this isn't something that just rained down upon Republicans. We carried out that particular plan. But every single time we have a caucus, we have to fight for it. Do I feel pressure on caucus night? You better believe I do. I'm feeling it right now.
What is that relationship like between you and New Hampshire? Obviously, the first primary, you can't step too far on their toes. South Carolina after them. What is that relationship like between you and, say, the first 5 states?
I would say that New Hampshire, Nevada, and South Carolina, along with ourselves here in Iowa, we probably meet or talk 5 to 10 times a year. Every time we have an RNC meeting, we're together. We held joint events for our 168 RNC folks. It's very tight, and we had a motto, and it was all for one, one for all. So you wouldn't have seen something like what happened in the Democratic Party where South Carolina jumped ahead. South Carolina and the Republican Party wouldn't have done it. Now, we all know why that is. Joe Biden needs to get a win. He can't win here in Iowa because the progressives in Iowa don't like him. And so therefore they picked South Carolina just to rig the caucuses for him. That would not have happened because the carve-out states in the Republican Party have already agreed that we will stick together and not allow anybody, including President of the United States, to divide us.
Republicans run their caucus a lot different than the Democrats run their caucus. There's no secret there to any Iowan who's caucused over the last however many years. And it's especially different from what kind of has been tossed around with an all mail-in process on the Democratic side of things. From your point of view and a Republican side, is there any thought to expand access to it other than maybe a snowy night like we saw in 2016, where everyone comes to their gyms or their churches or what have you?
Yeah, the first thing that Republicans have always done is we've made it simple. And because of its simplicity, it's easy to count the votes. It's very transparent. So that's one thing that we have done that's kind of taken away some of those pressures. But we are willing to look at anything to expand the caucuses as long as we don't become a primary. Because if we become a primary, then all of a sudden New Hampshire and Iowa are against one another. When that happens, like happened in the Democratic Party when South Carolina decided to help out Joe Biden and jump ahead of everyone, when that happens, then we lose everything. So we're willing to look at it, but as far as a mail-in option on the Republican Party, no, I will guarantee you I will get a call within probably 2 minutes of announcing that if I happen to do so.
We've seen election deniers in your party, even in 2016 right here in the Iowa caucuses, more prominently from Donald Trump in 2016, but then in 2020. How do you validate your results as we head into 2024 and as we look past 2024 with the sort of paper design that the GOP has?
Sure, absolutely. And remember, in Iowa, we have very little doubt in terms of the transparency of our elections in general. Our legislature, long before the 2020 election, was already passing election integrity laws. What do? You're exactly right. You just hit the nail on the head. We have a paper trail, and we make sure that every single vote is validated. One year, I think it was in 2016, we audited and validated and certified our results in 3 days in a blizzard. So every single vote that is taken is not only validated, not only make sure that everyone sees it. You and the media here are able to see those results in real time, as close as humanly possible. So we're going to continue that, and I will guarantee you there might be some critics of how we do things. One criticism will be, are the elections valid? They will be, and everybody will be able to check it out themselves.
On that same wavelength, is there a recount process option for 2024? What does that look like?
There is always a recount when you have a paper trail. So yes, we will. As far as what those parameters are, what triggers that and everything, that's a call we make at that time. But look, we're in the business of having this caucus in 2024. My mind is also on 2028. I want 2024 to do well because that's my job. I also want 2028 to be here in Iowa too, so we must do it the right way. and it will be done as close to perfect as human beings can get, which is never perfect, but I'm going to try.
A final question for you. Democrats did just elect a new you for the Democrats, Chairwoman Rita Hart. Have you had conversations with her about what 2024 looks like for the Democrats and how you can help her directly?
Sure. She will be the 7th Democratic chair that I've served with. Had good relationships with almost all of them. Mostly who I've been working with up to this point is Scott Brennan, who has been their lead person during their transition time. Have talked to Scott a lot in terms of how I can be helpful, sometimes by talking, sometimes by keeping my mouth shut. Rita and I have tweeted back and forth with one another. I anticipate and look forward to a meeting with her. At this point, I kind of got to know, which direction are the Democrats going to go? Because if they are going to tell the National Party, we are having our First in the Nation caucuses, I want to be there to help, and I will do so in a meaningful, trustworthy, and bipartisan way.
Would you be a cheerleader for that?
Absolutely, I would, and I will be the first one to thank the Iowa Democratic Party for telling California and New York to go pound sand.
Coming up next on Close Up, the candidates in the best position to challenge Donald Trump for the GOP nomination for president. What a new poll shows when we come back.
Well, welcome back. The race to the Republican nominee for president only officially has 2 candidates.
But as we've shown you, more are expected to enter this race in the coming weeks. And as it starts to heat up, who are the frontrunners nationally? Well, Quinnipiac University released a poll last week to gauge voter support. That poll first looked at 14 official and potential candidates. It found former President Donald Trump as the frontrunner with 42%.
Followed by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, 36%. Nikki Haley also announced that she is running, 5% for her. 5 other candidates get 4% or less in this poll. Asa Hutchinson and 5 other potential candidates received under 1% support. Well, that does it for KCCI 8 News Close Up on this Sunday morning.
We'll see you right back here next Sunday. Have a great week.